What happens when Hollywood's ultimate tough guy walks into a room full of daytime talk show hosts who think they can push him around? You're about to find out, and trust me, this is one confrontation you won't see coming. Clint Eastwood, the man who built an entire legacy out of staring down villains and delivering justice with a whisper, found himself face to face with Joy Behar in what began as a routine interview but quickly unraveled into live TV chaos. Before we get into this explosive exchange, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because what Clint does next will leave you absolutely speechless. The show kicked off smoothly. The cameras rolled, and Whoopi Goldberg beamed at the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Clint Eastwood," she announced as the studio erupted in applause. Eastwood nodded politely, settling into his chair with calm authority. "Thank you for having me," he said in that unmistakable gravelly voice. Whoopi kept things light. "So, Clint, tell us about your latest project. What drew you to this story?" "It's about second chances," Eastwood replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes people deserve redemption even when the world's written them off." Sarah Haynes leaned forward, clearly moved. "That's such a powerful message. How do you choose which stories to tell at this stage in your career?" "I look for truth," Eastwood said simply. "Stories that say something real about the human condition. Hollywood's already got enough fantasy." For a few minutes, the conversation was smooth and engaging. Eastwood shared insights about filmmaking and life, and the audience hung on every word. But then, Joy Behar, who had been unusually quiet, saw her moment. "Clint," she said suddenly, her tone shifting, "you talk a lot about truth and redemption. But don't you think some of your past political comments contradict that message?" The room fell silent. Whoopi shot Joy a quick warning glance, but it was too late. Eastwood turned slowly to face her. "Which comments would those be, Joy?" "Oh, you know," she said with a saccharine smile. "Your support for certain politicians who've made some questionable statements about women and minorities." "I don't recall ever saying anything that disparaged anyone," Eastwood replied evenly, his voice carrying that cold, unmistakable edge that's made entire generations hold their breath. "Well, by association," Joy pressed, "don't you think your endorsements send a message?" The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Eastwood leaned back, fixing Joy with a look that could cut glass. "Young lady," he began slowly, "I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with people of every background and every belief system. I judge folks by their character, not their politics." "Young lady," Joy shot back, her voice rising, "excuse me, but I have every right to ask tough questions." "And I have every right," Eastwood replied calmly, "not to answer loaded ones from someone more interested in stirring controversy than having a conversation." Joy's face flushed red. "Loaded questions? I'm asking about your public statements, Clint. That's called journalism." "Is that what we're calling it now?" Eastwood asked dryly, his slight chuckle making the moment sting even more. "Back in my day, journalism meant facts, not fishing expeditions." Whoopi tried to steer things back. "Let's maybe focus on the film, Clint." But Joy wasn't done. "No, I think this matters," she snapped. "You can't expect softball questions when you've made controversial political statements like, 'Oh, you mean the empty chair?'" Joy said smugly, cutting him off before he could finish. "That bizarre convention thing? You mean when I used a creative metaphor to talk about accountability?" Eastwood said, his eyes locked on hers. "Yeah, I remember. What about it? Don't you think it was a little unhinged?" The audience was silent now. Even the crew stopped moving. Eastwood leaned forward, his voice dropping to that quiet, dangerous tone audiences knew all too well. "Joy, let me ask you something. How many films have you made?" Joy frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just answer," he said evenly. "How many films have you directed, produced, or starred in?" "That's not the point," Joy shot back. "I'm a talk show host, not a filmmaker." "Right," Eastwood said. "And how many Academy Awards have you won?" Joy's voice wavered. "That's not relevant. How many careers have you launched? How many young actors have you given their first shot? How many stories have you told that mattered to people?" "I entertain people every day on this show," Joy said defensively, though her confidence was slipping fast. "Do you?" Eastwood asked, his tone quiet but razor-sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you ambush guests and create drama for ratings. Tell me, Joy, is that your idea of entertainment? The studio was dead silent. No one dared move. And for the first time all morning, Joy had no comeback. Sarah Haynes quickly jumped in, trying desperately to ease the tension. Clint, your films have inspired and entertained millions around the world, she said with a nervous smile. What's been the most rewarding part of your incredible career? Eastwood nodded, but his gaze never left Joy. You know what, Sarah? I'll answer that, he said evenly. The most rewarding part has been working with professionals, people who understand that respect is earned, not demanded. People who don't hide behind a panel of co-hosts to take cheap shots at their guests. Joy's mouth fell open. Cheap shots? I'm asking legitimate questions about your political views. No, Eastwood replied firmly. You're trying to create a viral clip for your social media. There's a difference between asking questions and ambushing someone. I'm not ambushing anyone, Joy protested, her voice growing defensive. I'm doing my job. Your job, Eastwood said calmly, is to interview guests about why they're here. I came to talk about a film I'm proud of and a story about redemption and second chances. You came to stir up politics and drama. Whoopi jumped in, trying to regain control. The film really does sound fascinating, Clint. Can you tell us a bit about the main character? Eastwood finally broke eye contact with Joy, though only briefly. It's about a man who's made mistakes, he explained. But he's trying to do better. Sometimes the hardest part of redemption isn't your past. It's the people who refuse to let you move beyond it. Everyone in the studio caught the subtext. The metaphor was sharp, and Joy knew it. Her forced smile barely held. That's a beautiful message, Sarah said quickly, trying to keep things light. Redemption is such a powerful theme in storytelling, but Joy wasn't done. Speaking of redemption, she said, leaning forward, don't you think some people are beyond it? I mean, if someone keeps supporting divisive politics, at what point do we stop giving them second chances? Eastwood's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. Are we talking about my character? He asked slowly. Or are you trying to make this personal again? I'm talking about accountability, Joy replied with mock righteousness. Public figures have a responsibility to their fans. Do they now? Eastwood said quietly, that signature calm, dangerous tone returning. And what responsibility do television hosts have to their guests? To ask the tough questions that matter, Joy shot back instantly. No, Eastwood said flatly. To treat people with basic human decency, something you seem to have forgotten. The tension in the studio was electric. Whoopi was signaling frantically to producers off camera, but Joy pressed on, ignoring her. Human decency? Joy scoffed. That's rich, coming from someone who's spent decades glorifying gun violence on screen. The audience gasped. Even by the View's standards, that was a step too far. Eastwood leaned back, studying Joy for a long, quiet moment. Then in that unmistakable voice, he said, You know what your problem is, Joy? Oh, please, enlighten me, she said with dripping sarcasm. You think being loud makes you right? Eastwood said evenly. You think being confrontational makes you brave, but all it really makes you is a bully hiding behind a microphone. Excuse me? Joy's voice shot up an octave, echoing across the silent studio. You heard me, Eastwood said, unmoved. You sit here day after day taking shots at people who can't fight back because they're your guests. You think that makes you powerful, but it just makes you small. How dare you call me small? Joy snapped, jumping to her feet, her face flushed with fury. I've been doing this job for years. I've interviewed presidents, celebrities, world leaders. And how many of them? Eastwood interrupted, his tone sharp as a blade, walked out of here feeling like they'd been treated with respect. The room went dead silent. No one said a word. Not the hosts, not the audience, not even Joy. How many of them walked away thinking that was a professional interview? Eastwood asked, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Joy was sputtering now. I don't have to take this from you or anyone else. You're absolutely right, Eastwood said calmly, standing his ground. You don't have to take anything from me. Just like I don't have to sit here while you turn what should have been a conversation about art into your personal political theater. Clint, Joy, Maybe we should all take a breath here, Whoopi interjected, trying to diffuse the growing explosion. No. Whoopi, Eastwood said, standing up slowly. I think Joy and I understand each other perfectly now. Joy was practically shaking with anger. You can't just walk out of an interview because you don't like the questions. Watch me, Eastwood said coolly, giving her that unmistakable squint. I came here as a courtesy to talk about something that matters to me. I didn't come here to be your punching bag for the day. This is live television, Joy snapped. You can't just leave. Can I? Eastwood replied, unclipping his mic. See, that's another thing you don't understand. Joy. Real power isn't cornering someone on live TV. It's knowing when to walk away. If you walk out now, you'll look like you can't handle tough questions, Joy said, her tone turning desperate as she realized she was losing control of the moment. Eastwood paused, then looked directly into the main camera. Folks at home, he said evenly, I came here to talk about a film that means something to me. Instead, I got ambushed by someone more interested in going viral than having an honest conversation. And that right there, that's the state of television today. Then he turned back to Joy. As for handling tough questions, lady, I've been doing that since before you knew what a microphone was. The difference is they used to come from professionals. Joy's face turned crimson. You arrogant has-been. You think you can just insult me on my own show? The words hit the air like a thunderclap. The studio fell completely silent. The other hosts looked horrified. Even the camera crew froze. Eastwood turned to her slowly, his expression calm, but with that same quiet danger he'd made famous on screen. Has been? He repeated softly. That's rich, coming from someone whose biggest accomplishment is sitting at a table talking about other people's accomplishments. The silence that followed was suffocating. You could have heard a pin drop. Eastwood's expression didn't change, but his presence filled the room. Has been, he said again, almost to himself. In all my years, I've been called a lot of things, but usually by people who've actually done something. Joy's eyes flickered with realization, but pride wouldn't let her back down. I've accomplished plenty, thank you very much. Have you? Eastwood asked, his voice dropping to that deadly whisper. Let's see, how many guests have you insulted? How many interviews have you turned into shouting matches? How many meaningful conversations have you destroyed for the sake of a headline? I ask the questions that need to be asked, Joy said, though her voice was trembling now. No, Eastwood said firmly. You ask the questions that get you attention. There's a difference between journalism and performance art, and you seem to have forgotten which one you're supposed to be doing. Whoopi tried one last time to save the moment. Clint, maybe we can just start over. Joy, why don't you apologize and we'll move on to the film? Joy whirled on her co-host. Apologize? For what? Doing my job? Your job, Eastwood interjected, is supposed to inform and entertain your audience, not attack your guests for sport. I wasn't attacking you. Joy protested weakly. Eastwood gave a dry, humorless laugh. Lady, I've been in real combat. I know what an attack looks like. The difference is, when someone came at me in the service, at least they had the courage to do it to my face, not hide behind a TV format. The other hosts looked mortified. Sarah Haynes stared at the floor, wishing she could disappear. Even the studio audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. You think you're so tough? Joy said, her voice cracking. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Eastwood. This is my house. These are my rules. And if you don't like my questions, you can leave. Eastwood's smile was cold and measured, the kind that could stop a heartbeat. Your house, your rules, he said quietly. You're absolutely right, Joy, and that's exactly the problem. He straightened to his full height, towering over the table. In your house, guests get ambushed. In your house, disagreement equals disrespect. In your house, stirring up drama matters more than understanding. Well, congratulations. You've built yourself quite a house. Joy was practically trembling now. If you think you can just waltz in here and lecture me about television, you've got another thing coming. I'm not lecturing you about television, Eastwood replied coolly. I'm telling you the truth. What you do here isn't television, it's a circus. And you're the head clown. The gasp from the audience was instant and audible. Even for daytime TV, this was nuclear. How dare you? Joy shrieked, completely losing her composure. "How dare you come on my show and insult me like that?" "Your show?" Eastwood raised an eyebrow and looked around at the other hosts. "Funny, I thought this was supposed to be a panel show. Turns out it's just the Joy Behar Ego Hour. With backup singers," Whoopi finally snapped. "Clint, that's enough. Joy, you need to calm down right now." But Joy wasn't hearing any of it. "Don't tell me to calm down, Whoopi," she shouted, her voice echoing across the stunned studio. How many people walked away thinking that was a professional interview? Joy was shaking now, her voice rising with fury. "This man comes in here with his holier-than-thou attitude and thinks he can disrespect me on national television." "The only person who's shown disrespect here," Eastwood replied quietly, "is you." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The weight of his calm made the words land harder. "From the moment I sat down, you weren't looking for a conversation. You were looking for a fight. I was doing my job," Joy insisted, but even she seemed to hear how hollow that sounded. "No," Eastwood said, shaking his head slowly. "Your job would be to ask about my work, my process, maybe even my perspective on storytelling or film. Your job would be to give your audience something meaningful, something they could walk away from having learned or felt. Instead," he gestured toward the cameras, "you've spent the last 20 minutes trying to humiliate a guest who came here in good faith. And all you've managed to do is humiliate yourself. And your show." Joy's eyes darted around the table, searching for backup, but none of the other hosts would meet her gaze. The audience was silent and clearly on Eastwood's side. Even the crew members were exchanging uneasy looks. "Fine," she snapped finally, her voice cracking. "If you don't want to answer real questions, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." Eastwood paused mid-motion as he removed his microphone. "Real questions?" He looked straight into the main camera. "You want to know what a real question sounds like, Joy? Try this. What keeps you driven to make films at your age? Or what advice would you give to young filmmakers trying to find their voice? Or maybe, which story are you most proud of telling?" He turned back to her. "But those kinds of questions require you to actually care about the answers. And we both know you don't." The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the lights. Joy opened her mouth, but no words came. "You know what the saddest part of all this is?" Eastwood said, his tone softening to something almost reflective. "You had the chance to have a real conversation with someone who's lived through decades of American cinema. Instead, you chose to play gotcha games like a click-hungry blogger." He finished unclipping his microphone and placed it carefully on the table. "That's not just a waste of my time, Joy. It's a waste of your audiences. They deserve better than this circus." "Don't you dare lecture me about my audience," Joy snapped, her voice shrill now. "I've been connecting with viewers for decades." "Have you?" Eastwood asked, adjusting his jacket. "Or have you just been yelling at them for decades? There's a difference between connecting with people and just making noise." Behind the cameras, producers were frantically gesturing, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let it play out. It was chaos, and Eastwood's composure only made it worse for Joy. "Security!" she suddenly shouted. "Get security out here!" Eastwood laughed, a genuine, unrestrained laugh for the first time. "Security? What are they going to do, Joy? Arrest me for hurting your feelings?" The audience gasped. The tension was electric. "I've been in this business over 60 years, Eastwood said, scanning the stunned faces around the studio. "I've worked with the greatest directors, actors, and crews in the world, and in all that time, I've never met anyone quite like you." "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" Joy spat. "Take it however you want," Eastwood replied evenly. "But tomorrow, when people talk about this interview, they won't be talking about your tough questions or your journalistic integrity. They'll be talking about how you lost control and embarrassed yourself on live television." With that final, devastating remark, Clint Eastwood stood, gave the audience a small nod, and walked calmly toward the studio exit. The remaining hosts sat frozen. The audience was silent. The cameras captured Joy Behar's face, red with fury and humiliation, as Eastwood disappeared through the studio doors. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the feed abruptly cut to commercial. And just like that, daytime TV had its most unforgettable moment. What began as a routine promotional interview became one of the most explosive confrontations in television history. Clint Eastwood proved that even in his later years, he's still the fastest draw in Hollywood. Only this time, his weapon was words. Subscribe for more unbelievable stories like this one, and tell us in the comments, did Joy Behar finally meet her match?